From the conquest of Constantinople to the epic battles against European powers, the Ottoman Empire's military prowess shaped the course of history. But what were the key battles that defined this great empire? How did a relatively small group of nomads evolve into a sophisticated war machine that terrified the world for centuries? Their story is one of ambition, adaptation, and at times almost unbelievable ruthlessness. We often look back at these ancient clashes with a sense of inevitability. After all, history is written by the victors. But in the moment, the outcome of these epic struggles was anything but certain. Thousands of lives hung in the balance. Dynasties rose and fell on the strength of the sword. It was a time when empires were built not on spreadsheets and trade agreements, but on the backs of hardened soldiers and rivers of blood. So, buckle up, folks, because we're about to take a deep dive into the heart of the Ottoman war machine. We'll explore the tactics, the technology, and the sheer brutality that characterized this era of warfare. Get ready to witness history unfold as we break down the most famous battles of the Ottoman Empire. The year is 1453. For centuries, the great city of Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire, had stood as an impenetrable bastion against invaders. It was a city steeped in 1,000 years of history, a cultural and religious center that seemed impervious to the tides of war sweeping across the known world. But on the horizon, a storm was brewing. A young ambitious sultan named Mehmed II, known to history as Mehmed the Conqueror, had set his sights on the ultimate prize. He commanded an army of as many as 80,000 soldiers, a force pulsating with religious fervor and dreams of plunder. But Constantinople was no ordinary city. Its towering walls, built centuries earlier by Roman emperors, had repelled countless sieges. Could any army, no matter how large or determined, hope to breach these legendary defenses? Mehmed, however, was not a man to be deterred. He understood that to conquer Constantinople, he would need more than brute force. He needed to strike a blow against the city's morale, to shatter the belief in its impregnability. His weapon of choice, a technological marvel that would forever change the face of warfare, the cannon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cannons in the 15th century, weren't those just glorified fireworks? Trust me, these were not your grandfather's cannons. Mehmed commissioned the construction of a behemoth, a super cannon unlike anything the world had ever seen. This iron monster, forged in the fires of Ottoman ambition, could hurl stone balls weighing over half a ton. It was a weapon designed to pulverize, to instill terror in the hearts of men. And pulverize it did. For weeks, the Ottoman bombardment rained down on Constantinople's once mighty walls. The defenders, outnumbered and outgunned, fought with the courage and tenacity that had defined their ancestors. But the relentless assault, coupled with the psychological impact of these monstrous cannons, began to take its toll. On May 29, 1453, after a siege of 53 days, the unthinkable happened. A breach appeared in the city walls. Ottoman soldiers, fueled by years of pent-up frustration and the promise of unimaginable riches, poured into the city. What followed was a scene of unimaginable chaos and carnage. Constantinople, the city that had stood for over 1,000 years, fell in a single day. The Byzantine Empire, the heir to Rome itself, was extinguished, and from the ashes of this ancient empire rose a new power in the East, the Ottoman Empire, destined to shape the course of history for centuries to come. But the conquest of Constantinople was not just about military might. It was a clash of civilizations, a symbolic victory for Islam over Christianity. The fall of this great city sent shockwaves across Europe, fueling religious animosity and sparking a new era of conflict between East and West. The year is 1526. The Ottoman Empire, flush with the conquest of Constantinople and countless other victories, was a force to be reckoned with. At its helm stood Suleiman the Magnificent, a ruler who embodied both military brilliance and cultural refinement. His armies, battle-hardened and thirsting for glory, had set their sights on a new target, the Kingdom of Hungary. Now, Hungary at this time was no pushover. It was a powerful kingdom in its own right, a bulwark of Christendom standing between the Ottomans and the heart of Europe. But the Hungarians were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The Ottoman war machine, honed over decades of constant campaigning, was a force of nature, a whirlwind of disciplined cavalry, deadly janissaries and innovative tactics. The two armies clashed on the field of Mohács, a flat, open plain that offered no advantage to either side. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of nations. The Hungarian army, though smaller than their Ottoman counterparts, were confident in their superior numbers of armored knights. The medieval shock troops that had dominated European battlefields for centuries, they charged headlong into the Ottoman lines, expecting to make short work of these eastern invaders. But the Ottomans were ready for them. They had studied European tactics, learned from their mistakes, and adapted their strategies accordingly. As the Hungarian knights charged, they were met with a hail of arrows from Turkish archers, a seemingly endless barrage that darkened the sky. Horses and riders alike were cut down in droves, their armor offering little protection against the sheer volume of missiles. But the real blow came from the Ottoman artillery. Remember those cannons that brought down the walls of Constantinople? They were back, and this time they were even more deadly. Positioned on the flanks of the Ottoman army, these thundering behemoths unleashed a devastating barrage on the advancing Hungarian formations. The impact was nothing short of catastrophic. Imagine, if you will, the chaos on that battlefield, the air thick with smoke and the stench of gunpowder and blood, the screams of men and horses cut short by the thunder of cannons and the whistle of arrows. The Hungarians, their formation shattered, their attacks stalled, were easy prey for the disciplined Ottoman infantry and the lightning-fast Turkish cavalry. What followed was a massacre. The Hungarian army, caught in a deadly crossfire, was decimated. King Louis II of Hungary, the young monarch who had led his kingdom into battle, was killed. His body trampled beneath the hooves of fleeing horses. Within the span of a few short hours, the might of Hungary was broken. The Battle of Mohács was not just a military defeat, it was a national trauma for Hungary. The kingdom was carved up, its people subjected to Ottoman rule for over a century. The gateway to Central Europe had been forced open, paving the way for further Ottoman expansion. Chapter 3. Lepanto. The Ottoman Armada tasted defeat. The year is 1571. The Ottoman Empire, a dominant force for centuries, was facing a new kind of challenge. The Mediterranean Sea, once considered an Ottoman lake, was swarming with the warships of the Holy League. A coalition of European powers united in their fear of Ottoman expansion. At stake was nothing less than control of the Mediterranean, a vital trade route and a symbol of power and prestige. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a naval battle for the ages. The Ottoman fleet, commanded by the experienced Admiral Ali Pasha, was a formidable force, boasting hundreds of galleys and tens of thousands of sailors and soldiers. But the Holy League, led by Don Juan of Austria, was equally determined to break the Ottoman stranglehold on the Mediterranean. The two fleets met off the coast of Lepanto, a small town in western Greece. The scene must have been awe-inspiring. Hundreds of ships, their sails billowing in the wind, maneuvered for position, the air thick with anticipation and the smell of salt spray. The sun glinting off the water, the colourful banners of the various combatants snapping in the breeze. It was a scene straight out of a Hollywood epic. But this was no movie set. This was real life with real stakes and the potential for unimaginable bloodshed. The battle began with a deafening roar as both sides unleashed a furious barrage of cannon fire. Galleys, their decks packed with archers and musketeers, exchanged volleys of arrows and lead. The sea itself seemed to boil as ships collided, their rams splintering wood and bone with equal ease. The Ottomans, initially confident in their numerical superiority, soon realized they had underestimated their opponents. The Holy League ships, armed with heavier cannons and manned by experienced crews, inflicted heavy casualties on the Ottoman fleet. The fighting was brutal, hand to hand, with no quarter given or asked. One of the key factors in the Holy League's victory was their use of a new weapon, galleasses. These massive, heavily armed ships, essentially floating fortresses, proved to be a decisive advantage in the battle. Their powerful cannons ripped through Ottoman formations, while their high sides made them difficult to board. Despite the ferocity of the Ottoman resistance, the tide of battle began to turn against them. Ali Pasha, his flagship surrounded by enemy vessels, fought bravely but was ultimately killed, his death dealing a blow to Ottoman morale. As the sun began to set, the Ottoman fleet, battered and demoralized, began to retreat. The Battle of Lepanto was a resounding victory for the Holy League. It marked the first major defeat for the Ottoman navy in centuries and shattered the aura of invincibility that had surrounded the Ottoman Empire. But it was a Pyrrhic victory, a victory won at a tremendous cost. Thousands of men on both sides lay dead or dying, the blue waters of the Mediterranean stained crimson with their blood. So there you have it, a glimpse into the epic battles that shaped the Ottoman Empire. From the conquest of Constantinople to the bloodbath at Mohács, from the triumph at Lepanto to countless other conflicts, the Ottomans left an undeniable mark on the pages of history. Their story is a complex tapestry of military genius, political intrigue, and cultural exchange. It's easy to judge the past through the lens of our own time, but to truly understand the Ottomans, we have to step back and try to see the world through their eyes. It was a world where violence was often the norm, where empires rose and fell with the swing of a sword. Thanks for watching. Until next time.